The Banff Centre Mountain Film Festival's World Tour is stopping in Winnipeg tonight, and you can check out some of the top short documentaries from this year's festival at the Centennial Concert Hall. One of the docs follows filmmaker Max Romey as he retraces the footsteps of his late grandmother and award-winning artist Lou Romey. The goal? To find the exact spot where she stood in the French Alps many years ago and recreate her sketch in the same place. And Max joins us now via Zoom from Anchorage, Alaska. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. How's it going?
I'm well. So before we get into the interview, in Winnipeg, we complain about the cold all the time, but I feel like in Alaska, we can
Well,
kind of maybe relate. How cold is it?
it's pretty, I mean, it's only about like 0 Celsius right now, so it's actually pretty
Oh,
reasonable. But
yeah.
Alaska's absolutely enormous, and so I think Fairbanks might be like -40. So
Okay.
we'll take like the fancy coldness, but yeah, we're sitting comfy here.
Max, I love the idea behind this documentary, and I would love to like learn more about your grandmother, first of all. The fact that she captivated you to take on this project. Tell us a little bit about Lou, Grandma Lou. What was she like?
Oh my gosh. I mean, she was one of these people who was kind of unassuming. She was super brave and curious and but would always kind of get you talking about yourself. But I didn't really realize that at the time. She just always had a sketchbook in her hands, but she was sketching everything. And she would go to all these wild places, but her sketchbook really let her be able to kind of see the world in this different way. And then she'd use those sketches to make quilts and tell stories and all of these things. But it was like this language where you almost always saw her with a sketchbook in her hand, but she was always just so curious. She would uh, walk into crowds, and she was very tall. She was like, I think almost 6 feet or something like that. And so she would just kind of, tower over things and just sit down and sketch. And it was just one of those things growing up where it was like, oh yeah, it's like, everybody's grandma just sits and sketches. And it was only until later after she had died that I found all of her sketchbooks. But way before then, she was really the inspiration that got me to paint originally.
Well, tell me more about that then. How did you get interested in art?
Uh, Kind of by accident a little bit. I think everybody's an artist until they decide they're not. I've got a 3-year-old right now, and the only question is how much paper can I put in front of him, not if he'll paint or not. But for me, growing up, I was dyslexic, and
Mm.
so it was really tough because a lot of times I'd try to write an essay or a paper or something like that, or a story, and all I couldn't get through the words, or if I did try to write something, it was always crossed out in red. But painting and sketching was the one thing that I could do that you couldn't misspell. And it was amazing how you could just tell a story, even if you didn't even share the same language, if you could sketch. And my grandmother was always hugely encouraging of just, she'd make sure I had a sketchbook in my hand and just learn from her example of this thing that we all do as kids, but for some reason forget that it's like one of our first languages. And I was just lucky to have somebody who kind of kept that spark alive for me.
Do you have a memory of like showing her one of your sketches or something where, art seemed to be like such a unifier between the two of you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I'd always make little sketches and send them to her, and then, I'd see them like up on her wall. And like when we were kind of going through her studio after she had died, like the sketch, like seeing my sketches on her wall next to her like amazing watercolors and things, and just she always made me feel like such an artist, even though she herself was such a like incredible artist and adventurer. But it's such a good reminder too, whether you are an artist or you support one, it's like it takes so little to like get a kid or a person or adult or something, just a little bit of encouragement makes them paint like crazy. But now her sketches have kind of started me on this wild quest that probably will take me the rest of my life, and it's just paper.
Okay, tell us about the quest. Where did this idea come from?
Well, kind of that happened by accident too. I was going through her sketches just because I figured like, oh, these things really inspired me. I wanted to scan them just, to see a few of them. And there was a lot of sketches. She left behind over 6,000 sketches from all over the world. We're talking Antarctica to the Galapagos. She traveled a lot. And I started to recognize a few of them. So I would see a sketch from Alaska, and it would be like, wait a second, I know this place. And so I tried to take one of these sketchbooks and see if I could find exactly where she was standing, because painting is like it's like a language, and there's only like there's only things on the paper that inspired you to put them there. If you take a photograph of a place, it captures literally everything. It doesn't think, it's chemical. It's a chemical reaction. It's amazing, but it captures everything. But as an artist, if you make a picture, every single one of those brushstrokes or pen lines is on purpose because it inspired something that you saw. It's like a marathon or like a pilgrimage or something. Like every single step along the way was important but it's like that big picture that it comes together. And with my grandmother, it was like this language that we shared. When I saw the little eraser marks, or when I saw the way ink would have smeared because of raindrops, it's like I could see that, I could understand it, and I wanted to take the sketchbook back to exactly where the sketch was made. One more time. It was there 40 years ago. What were the chances I could find that spot? So I tried for one of these first ones to bring her sketchbook back to exactly where it was made because I figured it would only line up in one place. The mountains and the trees, and if you move 10 meters to the left or 10 meters to the right, the rock that was in front of her will no longer line up with the tree behind it and the mountain behind that. So technically, there's only one place where it should be able to line up. She was very accurate. So I took it back to Alaska, and it's kind of this wild adventure where I ended up having to kind of backtrack and retrace, and there's a missing glacier and all of this wildness. But I ended up finding to the foot where she was, and I was able to stand at the same place and make the same sketch of the same thing. And when I held her sketch of what she saw, and when I had the landscape of what she was looking at in front of me, it was like I could see exactly what she was thinking. And for like this brief moment, it was almost like, she was there,
Yeah.
and we got to sketch again together because then I made the same sketch in the same place with the same materials 40 years later, 45 years later. And so it's just that sort of set that spark in motion. And now I've found 11 and sketched 11. So I only have 5,989 to go all over the world.
Max, you almost answered this question, but I don't want to assume you're going to such lengths to find the exact spot where your grandmother stood and did this sketch. What do you think is driving you to go to such lengths to do this?
That's a good question. Sometimes I kind of wish that I knew the answer and or that I didn't feel like I had to. Like a
Yeah.
lot of these are really, really hard because you wouldn't label them necessarily. So
Hmm.
it'll just be a, mountain range and it will just say British Columbia. It's like, okay, in order to find this, I'm gonna have to find a person who knows these mountains really well, and then they're gonna have to lead me closer and closer until eventually I find this. But I think part of it is actually I feel like I have all these questions that I wish I could have asked her. She she had really bad Alzheimer's, or it was dementia, but one of those, and she kind of lost a lot of her memories in those last 5 years. And there's all of these questions and things that I wish I I had thought to bring up. And these sketchbooks for me are kind of a way to be able to reconnect and know a little bit more of who she was, and also be able to capture some of these places before they're gone. There's a lot of times, I mean, she's sketched in Jasper. She's sketched a lot of these glaciers in the Yukon and BC, and it also kind of feels like it's a bit of a race against time because in order to find these places, you've got to be able to recognize the places, and a lot of them are changing so much. Or she sketched in Ukraine or Lahaina or all these places, but it's also this incredible way to kind of, yeah, it's like she was there. It's this secret language, and it's it's paper, but it's also the closest thing to a time machine that I found.
We've been talking about grief a lot on this show, and I think that's what strikes me about this is that you're finding a way to connect with your grandmother after she's gone in a way that you know, transcends time and place and medium. And I just think it's a really beautiful testament to your relationship with her.
It's been interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of going through a little bit of that journey myself. At first, I kind of wanted to capture all these places just so that I had one perfect thing that hadn't changed. The film we have, showing tonight is really about trying to track down some of these sketches in France, or these big glaciers, and being able to find out where she was. And since then, my journey has kind of changed where it's been less of less of like trying to hold something, but to try to just be there with it, if that makes any sense. It's things are so fleeting, and I think I'm really seeing that where entire mountain ranges are changing. But the only thing worse than losing something is to never know what you lost. And I think that's what I'm really feeling now is I want to go to these places, if not for me, then for my kids and be able to see what was there and appreciate it and know if it does change, and maybe it'll inspire people to try to keep them around a little bit longer, but we protect what we love, and in so many ways I'm kind of seeing what she saw through these
Mm.
pages, and it's given me this whole different perspective.
She's still teaching you, even after her passing, these life lessons. Like we live in such a, selfie generation where we're taking so many pictures with our phones. And I wonder how often we go back and look at those pictures, and yet you're taking the time to stop. And like I love the description of why sketches are so different to just taking pictures. You're interacting with every brushstroke, every line, every erasing as the artist. And just so our audience gets a sense of the lengths that you went to, is it true that you actually, were climbing Mont Blanc in the French Alps at one point in an
Oh,
effort
not
to
all of
do this?
Mont Blanc, just a piece,
No.
and there's a
Okay.
tram up it. It's real convenient. They have trams in yeah. So, boy, gondolas and trams are a
Yeah.
whole thing. We Alaskans could learn a few things. I guess we have one here, but it's amazing in Europe. You just take a tram up and have hot chocolate, whereas here you got to like fight through a moose and a bear to even like get to the trailhead. But the like the amount of change that is in some of
Mm,
these French places is fascinating because on the top of we didn't go all the way to the top of Mont Blanc, but
mm,
real close, and just tracking down some of these sketches is it really kind of puts you there. But also what's so interesting for me is it forces you to slow down. And for a lot of my life, I was filming these ultra races. I'd film, runners running up Mont Blanc, and
mm,
and that was kind of my world. How fast could you go through a place? But with sketches, you can't take a burst of, quick photos, or, you're not. It's called like spray and pray, is where you just take a million photos and hope one
yes.
turns out.
Yeah.
It's really you're forced to kind of sit down for like half an hour at the, the shortest. And what's so fascinating for me in such a fast world is when you do just sit down for half an hour,
Mm,
you see things change. It's you're more part of a place. You see how the light moves through it. It's like old school photography where you have to sit there for an hour for it to develop. Um, it's the same it's the same for me where it's not necessarily about the sketch. I think a lot of it is about the excuse just to be there. And if you just sat and stared at a tree for 2 hours, people would probably call you in. But if you have a sketchbook, for some reason, it's acceptable to do that. So it's been both a kind of wild coloring book, treasure map, but it's also a bit of a skeleton key to unlocking some of these spots.
So many gems in this conversation, Max. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. And if you get a chance, it's a really fun story to check out.